They dragged her forward, her tears falling as her mother screamed for mercy. She was just 19 when they forced her into the hands of the most dreaded Comanche warrior the frontier had ever feared. To everyone, he was a monster, a shadow of death, a man without mercy. They believed she would never return alive, but what no one knew was that behind his fierce mask, he carried a secret so powerful, so heartbreaking, that when it was finally revealed, it would make the whole world weep. The sun bled across the Texas plains, staining the horizon in shades of fire and sorrow. Dust rose with each pounding hoof, carrying with it the echo of fear and inevitability. In a small frontier settlement, whispers of terror had spread for weeks, whispers that froze mothers' hearts and made fathers grip their rifles tighter. The Comanche were on the move, and at their head rode the man everyone feared, the warrior. They called Black Wolf. To the settlers, his name was synonymous with death. Tales painted him as a beast of vengeance, a shadow that struck in the night with no mercy. Children were warned to hush their cries or Black Wolf would come. Grown men spoke his name only in low voices, as if afraid he might hear even across the wind. Yet behind those fearful whispers, no one truly knew the man, only the legend. In the heart of the settlement lived a girl named Eliza. Barely 19, her spirit carried the brightness of youth, though her world had been darkened by loss. Her father had been taken in a raid years ago, leaving only her mother and younger brother to depend on her. Life was already cruel, but nothing had prepared her for the day when Black Wolf himself rode into town. The villagers gathered in tense silence as the war party dismounted, faces painted, weapons gleaming. Their presence carried both dread and authority. At their center sat Black Wolf, his eyes burning like coals beneath the shadow of his war bonnet. He didn't shout, didn't raise his weapon, yet his silence carried more weight than thunder. When his gaze swept across the settlers, it landed on Eliza, and everything in her life changed in that single heartbeat. The chief of the settlement, trembling but desperate to prevent slaughter, stepped forward. With faltering words, he offered a desperate bargain. To spare their lives, one of their own would be given to Black Wolf as his wife. Gasps broke from the crowd, fear mixing with outrage, but no one stepped forward. Mothers clutched their daughters, men lowered their eyes. And then the chief's hand, wrinkled and merciless, pointed at Eliza. Her breath caught in her chest. She felt her mother's hands clutch her arm, shaking in protest, but the decision was made. Eliza had been chosen. Tears blurred her vision. As she was dragged forward, her body trembling though she fought to stand tall, the villagers whispered prayers for her soul, already certain she would not survive the fate awaiting her. She had heard the stories, how Black Wolf treated women like trophies, how his cruelty knew no bounds. To be bound to him was to walk into a living grave. Black Wolf's eyes never left hers. He gave no expression, no sign of cruelty or mercy. With a single nod, he accepted the offering. Eliza was placed on his horse, forced to ride with the most dreaded warrior of the plains, leaving behind her home, her mother's wails, and the childhood that had ended in a single breath. The ride to the Comanche camp was endless, each mile tightening the knot of fear in her chest. Warriors surrounded her, their voices sharp in a language she barely understood. Every glance, every mocking laugh reminded her she was no longer free, no longer safe. Yet it was the silence of Black Wolf that terrified her most. He rode ahead, straight-backed, his presence commanding without a word. His silence felt like a storm waiting to break. When the camp came into view, Eliza's heart sank further. Tents dotted the land like shadows, fires burned with smoke curling into the darkening sky, and children stopped their play to watch the pale girl arrive. Women whispered, some with pity, others with scorn. She was taken into a lodge, told this would be her new home, her new life. her cage. That night, she sat alone by the fire, her tears falling silently. She expected Black Wolf to storm in, to claim her as cruelly as the stories had promised. Her body shook with dread, every sound, outside sending a jolt of panic through her chest. But he did not come. The night stretched long, and though fear gnawed at her, she remained untouched. The following days only deepened the mystery. Black Wolf treated her not with tenderness, but neither with the brutality she expected. He spoke little, his words, sharp and brief, but his hands never struck her. His eyes never burned with the hunger she had feared. Instead, he kept his distance, watching her with an intensity that unsettled her. Eliza's defiance flickered despite her fear. She refused to bow her head, refused to let her spirit die, though inside she trembled. "Why me?" she whispered. One evening, as he brought her food, simple venison laid carefully by the fire. Her voice cracked, but her gaze was steady. "Why take me when you could have anyone?" For the first time, his eyes softened, though only for a fleeting second. He didn't answer. He turned and walked away, leaving her with questions that burned brighter than fear. Days turned to weeks, and slowly she began to notice things, small, fragile pieces of humanity hidden beneath the fearsome mask. At night, when he thought no one watched, Black Wolf sat alone by the fire, staring into the flames with a sorrow carved deep into his face. Sometimes she heard him humming softly, a melody that carried a haunting sadness. Once, when a child stumbled near the horses, she saw him rush forward, lifting the boy gently, his hands careful as if the child were made of glass. These glimpses rattled her. Could this truly be the same man the world called a monster? Or was the monster only a mask hiding something unspoken? But the camp held no mercy for her doubts. Many women looked at her with disdain, calling her an outsider, a settler's daughter, unworthy of their people's fiercest warrior. Some whispered that she was cursed, that her presence would bring ruin. She bore their words in silence, but at night her heart ached. She was caught between two worlds, unwanted by both. Yet beneath all the whispers, beneath the endless fear, one truth grew stronger in her heart. Black Wolf was not what he seemed. His silence was not cruelty, but burden. His eyes did not hold malice, but something far heavier, something locked away. Still, she did not know his secret, and when it finally came to light, it would not only shatter everything she believed about him, but break open the heart of the world itself. Eliza's heart raced as she lay awake that night, staring into the flickering shadows on the lodge wall. The thought repeated endlessly in her mind. He is not what he seems. Each day had chipped away at the monster she was told to fear, and what remained was a mystery far more haunting. Black Wolf carried something within him, something heavy, something that pulled at her curiosity even while fear still lingered. The turning point came one night when the camp was restless with the return of a hunting party. Fires blazed, drums beat, and the warriors celebrated their victory. Yet away from the noise, Eliza found herself wandering near the edge of camp, drawn by a low, broken sound. Following it, she stopped short when she saw him. Black Wolf sat alone beneath the stars, his war paint gone, his hands covering his face. His shoulders shook with quiet sobs. She froze. The dreaded warrior, the terror of the frontier, was crying. 1,000 questions surged inside her, but she dared not move. Still, the sound cut through her fear like a knife. Tentatively, she whispered, "Why are you crying?" He lifted his head, startled, his eyes glistening in the firelight. For the first time, she saw not a warrior, not a monster, but a man, wounded, burdened, unbearably human. His lips trembled as he answered softly, "Because they do not know, and they cannot know." "Know what?" she pressed, her voice steady though her heart raced. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with a breath that sounded more like surrender, He spoke, that I am not who they think I am. I am not their terror. I am not their monster. I am only a man who has lost everything. His words struck her like lightning. Eliza stepped closer, caught between fear and compassion. Lost everything? His gaze drifted toward the horizon as though searching for something only he could see. Long ago, before I was Black Wolf, I was a boy named Tahu. I had a family, a wife, a little daughter. His voice broke. They were my world. But one night soldiers came, they burned our lodge, cut down my people. I held my daughter in my arms as the flames rose, but I could not save her. Eliza's breath caught. The air between them grew heavy with his confession. He continued, his words raw. From that night, I swore never to feel weakness again. They gave me the name Black Wolf, the name of fear, and I let them believe it because fear was the only shield left to me. But every time I close my eyes, I see her face. Every raid, every battle, it is not rage that drives me, it is grief. His voice faded into silence, and Eliza felt her world tilt. The monster she had been forced to marry was not a beast at all, but a man carrying an ocean of pain. The feared warrior who had taken her from her home was himself a prisoner, trapped in chains of memory and sorrow no one else could see. Her chest tightened with something she didn't expect. Compassion. Tears blurred her eyes as she whispered, "And me? Why me? Why take me when you could have anyone?" For the first time, his eyes met hers without the mask. There was no fire, no threat, only broken honesty. Because when I looked at you, I saw her. Not her face, not her voice, but her spirit. The way you stood even when you trembled. The way you would not bow. I saw my daughter's courage in you, and I could not let you go. The revelation shattered her. She pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting back sobs. All her fear, all her hatred, all the stories she had believed, dissolved in the face of his truth. This man, feared by settlers and revered by his people, had taken her not to break her, but because she reminded him of the child he had lost. In the days that followed, Eliza's perception shifted completely. She no longer saw chains around her wrists, but a bond between two broken souls, hers carved by loss, his carved by grief. She began to listen when he spoke, began to see the kindness hidden in small gestures, the food he shared, the quiet protection he offered, the way he made sure no harm touched her. But not all hearts were softened. Many in the tribe questioned his choice, whispering that Black Wolf had grown weak. Some called her a curse, a settler's girl who would poison their chief's heart. Tension grew like storm clouds, and Eliza feared what might come. One evening, as the whispers turned to anger, Black Wolf stood before his people. The firelight painted his face, fierce yet vulnerable, as he raised his voice. "You call me Black Wolf and you fear me. But do you know why? Not because I am merciless, not because I am strong. You fear me because I carry pain you cannot imagine. You see her." He gestured to Eliza, "as a stranger. But I see her as a gift, for in her I remember the love I lost. In her I remember that even in sorrow, there is still life, still hope." The camp fell into silence. Warriors who had fought beside him lowered their eyes. Women who had scorned Eliza now wept quietly. For the first time, the truth of Black Wolf's heart was laid bare, not only to her, but to all. And Eliza, standing beside him, felt the weight of the moment. She realized that her fate had not been a curse, but a crossing of paths destined to reveal the hidden heart of a man the world had misunderstood. From that night forward, the whispers of fear began to fade. The children no longer shrank from him. Women brought Eliza gifts of food and clothing. Men bowed their heads with respect, not dread. And though he still carried sorrow in his soul, Black Wolf no longer bore it alone. Eliza had been forced into a marriage she never wanted. But in its cruel beginning, she found a truth that made the world weep, that even the most dreaded man can carry a heart broken by love, and that sometimes the cruelest fates are the ones that lead to the deepest healing. The legend of Black Wolf did not die, but it changed. No longer was he only the shadow that haunted settlers' nightmares. He became the man whose hidden heart reminded them all that grief, though it scars, can also give birth to compassion. And beside him stood Eliza, not as a prisoner, but as the one who had seen the secret no one else dared to look for. Seasons passed, and the bond between Eliza and Black Wolf deepened into something neither of them had expected. What began in fear and loss slowly transformed into trust, then into a quiet love forged in fire. Eliza learned his language, his ways, and the stories of his people. Black Wolf, in turn, opened his heart to her, allowing her to touch the wounds he had hidden from the world. Yet the outside world had not forgotten him. To the settlers, he was still a monster. To the soldiers, he was still the enemy. Rumors of his marriage to a settler's daughter spread like wildfire, twisting into cruel tales. Some said she had been bewitched, others that she was a prisoner waiting for rescue. And so, the day came when soldiers rode toward the camp, rifles gleaming, intent on tearing them apart. At dawn, the sound of hooves thundered across the valley. Black Wolf stood tall, his war paint returned, his bow in hand. Eliza's heart seized with terror, but he placed a hand over hers and whispered, "Do not fear. Whatever happens, know this. You gave me back my heart." His voice trembled, but his eyes held the strength of a man who had found peace, even in the shadow of death. The soldiers demanded Eliza's return. She stepped forward, her voice clear, unbroken. "I will not go. I was forced into this marriage, but I stay by choice. This man you call a monster carries more humanity than all your rifles combined." Her words cut through the morning air, silencing even the soldiers for a heartbeat. Black Wolf turned to face them, but before violence could ignite, an arrow of fate struck. A soldier fired, and Black Wolf staggered. Eliza's scream tore through the valley as he fell into her arms, blood staining her dress. The world blurred, but his voice, faint and broken, reached her ears. "Do not weep, for in you I found her again. My daughter's spirit lives in your courage." His hand touched her cheek, his eyes soft even as the light faded. Tell them I was more than fear." With those final words, his breath stilled. The dreaded warrior, the shadow of the plains, was gone. Eliza's cries echoed into the sky, her tears falling onto his still face. Around them, warriors and settlers alike stood in stunned silence. The legend of Black Wolf had ended not in terror, but in sacrifice, in love, in the revelation of a heart that had been hidden too long. In the days that followed, the story spread far and wide. No longer did people whisper of a merciless beast. They spoke of a man who had carried unbearable grief, who found redemption through a girl he was forced to marry. They spoke of his hidden heart, of the love that softened his darkness. His name no longer struck fear. It brought tears. Eliza remained with his people, carrying forward the truth he entrusted to her. She told the children of his laughter, of his songs, of the way he carried kindness beneath scars of sorrow. She told them he was more than the name Black Wolf, more than the monster painted by fear. He was a father, a husband, a man whose heart beat with love until the very end. And so the world wept, not for the monster they had feared, but for the man they had finally come to know. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Legacy Ignited for more powerful tales like this one. Hit the like button if you felt the emotions and share it so others can feel them too. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey. Your support means the world.